Hey kids, this is Ivan. I'd like to talk to you today about experience points. It's a rather contentious topic in terms of like how fast you want characters to level, what do you award experience for, etc. How slow or fast should advancement be? Now, when we were all young and playing this game, especially the older versions of the game, it made sense that we were going to play like campaigns that went on for years and play 20-hour games. Now that we're all older and have lives, we need to budget our time and figure out, well, geez, what's going to be fun for us? How fast do we want our characters to level? So this is something that you as a DM need to decide, and you should talk to your players about, beforehand. Now, in something like First Edition, experience points for monsters was rather low for killing them. They had a very low experience point bonus, plus their hit points, plus any kind of like abilities they might have. And then one gold piece equaled one experience point, which it confuses some modern gamers, but I'll kind of get into like why that is and why it makes a little bit of sense. In games like original D&D and some of the ones that I like to use in terms of experience point for monsters, it's more like 50 to 100 experience points per hit die for the monster, and plus any special abilities. So that's what I like to use for them. The problem you get into, though, when you're awarding too much experience points for monsters is they turn into XP on the hoof, as old geezer likes to say. The idea is like, games like modern games like Pathfinder and whatnot, you're getting all your experience for killing monsters. Now, this makes sense in terms of like why a character would advance, but it also kind of takes away a little bit from like the vibe of the game in terms of like what you're trying to do as adventurers. You're trying to sneak around and work the game to your best advantage. When you're adventuring, you're not just wanting to confront everybody. You're wanting to like steal their stuff and get out of there. I like the idea of having a bonus for avoiding wandering monsters, which was one of the reasons that gold pieces equaled experience points, because wandering monsters didn't have stuff on them. And also there was just the idea that like if you were to steal the treasure out of a lair of a monster, and not encounter it or not fight it, you got the experience for that. You got the one experience point for gold, for the gold piece. And that makes a lot of sense, because the idea was, you're sneaky, you want to avoid these monsters, you want to play smart and not always fight everything. Now, I also give experience for monsters in terms of like negotiating with them, tricking them, getting out of the situation, etc. It might not be the actual experience point value of the monster if you killed it or something, but the idea that you can get some experience for using your head, makes sense to me. Also, the idea of experience points for completing a mission, I'll use that, but the problem you run into with that a lot of times is the idea that you're railroading the players. You're as a DM are saying this is what you need to do in order to get experience, and that's not always cool. So you can use that, but you have to be a little careful about granting experience points for completing a mission. Also, the idea of like granting experience points for role playing is great. I'll give players experience, for a lot of stuff. So the idea that they're playing their character really cool, I'll throw them a bone, throw some extra XP and what have you. But the point really is you as a DM get to decide how fast people level. Now, unlike modern games, like there's not a unified XP system, in terms of like how fast, all characters don't all level at the same experience point value. Now, like in something like D&D, for the most part, a fighter would have, like let's give him a value of 1. He's the benchmark in terms of where XP are. A cleric, has 0.75. He needs 75% of the XP that a fighter does to advance for the most part. A magic user needs, 1.25. He needs 25% more XP. And a thief actually needs 0.625. He needs half as much as a magic user to advance. So you can't always use the benchmark that like X number of adventures equal, okay, now you all leveled. But the idea that you can use that framework in terms of like the fighter leveling and then everybody else kind of levels where they do, that makes a lot of sense to me. So you can kind of get the idea that like, yeah, I want to make my game go, this fast. So when we're playing like every week, and maybe like after every 4 or 6 adventures, like the fighter will level at least, and then the other classes will level around him. So that way, it can be fun for people. They're not like, just kind of whining like, geez, we've been playing this for like 3 years and I'm not leveling. This is not cool. And of course, the other problem you run into is as levels go up, you need more and more XP. Of course, you're fighting nastier monsters. They have more treasure. You can kind of throw people a bone for that in terms of that. So that's what I do for the most part. But you get to decide, how fast things go. And the other thing in terms of high level play, basic and first edition kind of vary in terms of the amount of XP the characters need. In first edition, characters need like a lot of XP to advance. The fighter needs like 250,000, to advance every level, and the magic user needs like 375,000. In basic, it's a little bit smaller, and then they keep the ratios closer to what they originally were. So I like that for high level play because I like to have a fun game, and a high level play could be a lot of fun because then you're finally get to throw like the demons, the devils, the illithids, all the really nasty stuff at the players, and you can have some incredibly fun games. A lot of people don't they shy away from high level play and they like the E6 and E9 or whatever. To me, like high level play is a blast because you get to use the really cool spells and you get to use the really cool monsters. So that's what I do for XP. I think you need to use your head and just figure out like how fast you want things to go, and then just work your game around that. But just be aware of the common pitfalls in terms of like railroading the players, in terms of giving XP for completing adventures, and not always treating monsters like XP on the hoof. The treasure should still, even though it makes no sense, should still give XP because that rewards players for playing smart, and that's what the game is all about.